Let's bring in Kevin Green, senior markets correspondent, right away to help set up the action today. All right, KG, we're off to the races for the bulls. It looks like, it was different than how I expected things to turn out yesterday. What's your thought?
Yeah, I would agree. If you're kind of looking at the performers to the upside, it was a lot more of the cyclical names that actually did catch a little bit of a bid here. Kind of that broadening out trade taking place with industrials and financials kind of leading the way. Also with consumer staples, Walmart had a phenomenal day yesterday. And I think that type of price action allows us to build at least a little bit of a foundation here when it comes to price. Now, Diane, I don't believe that volatility is over and done with for the month. I think we probably still have a little bit of headwinds. But the fact that we have the partial government shutdown, at least for now, is going to delay a lot of the government data, and that could also take volatility out of the market, similar to what we saw with the shutdown for last year as well. And we have some earnings, obviously Palantir, we'll talk about that here in a second here, that could actually bring this risk on trade in the market. You did see some buyers stepping into the gold trade, the silver trade as well. And so I think right now the market is trying to nibble at maybe some potential opportunities, at least in the near term, maybe getting into a little bit of a lower beta type of trade here that is having outsized returns compared to maybe some of the mega cap tech names. And I think we're still kind of focusing on what's next. And I think earnings is still going to be the primary focus. And then economic data probably takes a second or a third here just because of that government shutdown. So overall, it's actually a pretty decent day yesterday. A nice recovery from the lows over the overnight futures trading that we saw on Sunday as well.
Okay, so earnings in pole position. Let's get into it with those Palantir numbers. Those shares rallying more than 10% right now. Big quarter for the company. Take us through the details here.
Yeah, this was a really good quarter here. They reported revenue at $1.41 billion. Street was looking for $1.35 billion, and the adjusted earnings per share came in at 25 cents. Street was looking for 23 cents, but it's really their guidance moving forward here. Their Q1 revenue guide is between $1.53 billion and $1.536 billion here. Street was looking for $1.32 billion, so they beat there on the guide for next quarter, but the fiscal year 2026 outlook is really the surprising factor. They beat that revenue estimate by almost around $800 billion, close to $800 million, close to $1 billion for that beat. So at the end of the day, they are still seeing demand kind of ramping up, not only on the commercial side, but really what brought this stock over the top when you're looking at this report is the government contracts. Government revenue actually increased by 66% on a year-over-year basis. They continue to bring on large customers at a very fast pace, faster than the street's expectations. Their Rule of 40 metric, which is really looking at the revenue growth as well as EBITDA growth, continues to exceed the street's expectations. So you are seeing the stock up around 10%. I'm surprised it's not up a little bit more, but let's see what happens when the equity market does open. This is a name that does get a lot of attention on the options front. And if the stock is able to get to that 170 level and break above that, that's when we're going to see a massive short squeeze in this market, just based on the options positioning that we saw going into the close yesterday. So a really decent report. Hopefully this takes a little bit of pressure off of some of these other software companies that have been dragged down over the last 2 months.
Yeah, listen, I mean, to your point, you have a lot of analysts who are making price target adjustments this morning. You got Piper Sandler raising it to 230, Mizuho adjusting its price target as well off the back of its results. One thing that I find interesting in this that, we've been talking about how they've been growing in commercial. Government was obviously originally its bread and butter. You just pointed out how solid their numbers were in government. I just can't get over the fact that the growth was more than 60% for government and commercial more than 100%. Both of those are eye-popping numbers. Any final thoughts in terms of Palantir's earnings?
Yeah, I would say if you're really focusing on the future of this company, you would like to see that weight of the commercial side continuing to ramp up at a really healthy pace, and maybe a little bit more of a 60 to 30 ratio where you're looking at 60% of that revenue coming from commercial, 30% coming from government. Because the government spending can stop and start, we have seen once again kind of government shutdowns, maybe even some budget bills that kind of get impacted here. Now Palantir hasn't really been in the crosshairs when it comes to the government cuts because it is a product, or they are providing a product, several products for that matter, that is used to be able to improve efficiency. And so they haven't really seen any type of material headwinds when it comes to the government cuts over the last year or so. And there's also some domestic policy that we are seeing almost on a day-by-day basis, which they are benefiting as well. They did make mention about that on the conference call. So I agree with you. I mean, you're looking at really good growth rates for both sides, but I think the commercial business is a little bit more impactful, and that's a little bit less impacted by, once again, politics and things of that nature. So this is actually a really decent report. The stock was trading at a really key neckline level. If you're kind of looking at the technicals at that 147 level, it was able to hold that. We're advancing above that right now. And once again, I think if you get to 170, it's not out of the question to try to hit all-time highs for this name over the next couple of weeks.
All right, let's zoom out and talk the latest on the tariff front. U.S. and India, we got word yesterday initially on True Social that there is a deal there. Tell us the latest here.
Yeah, so the U.S. is actually going to cut tariffs on India to 18%, and that's going to be down from 25%. And the extra 25% punitive duty that was based on Russian imports for India has also been eliminated. So you are actually seeing, India stocks or India-related stocks are moving aggressively to the upside this morning. A little bit of a surprise. We did have a trade deal inked with India, but I don't believe it actually went through the parliament process. And then we have seen some headlines over the last 2 weeks about India inking some deals or signing some deals with European partners as well as with China. So I think there was probably a little bit of pressure on the U.S. to try to get back into this space. We have not received any type of joint statement. We've only had the statements coming out pretty much from the Washington or the U.S. administration, for that matter, when it comes to this particular deal. So let's get a confirmation from India. But this is actually going to be a really good thing for not only the United States, but also for India, especially for the United States. Defense spending for India has been ramping up very aggressively. So you're looking at stocks like RTX, LMT, or Lockheed Martin for that matter, and looking at others within that space that actually could see some tailwinds here over the next couple of years. We also might see some agricultural impacts as well that could take place if this deal is going to be adhered to. So a decent little surprise. We did see, once again, international markets moving to the upside on this report. We did not see that much of a reaction on the U.S. front, though. So let's see. Once again, I think the market's probably waiting for a confirmation from India around these terms to make sure that these items are going to clear, and then also it's going to clear their legislative body.
Okay, and let's talk about metals. It looks like there's some movement back into metals this morning.
Yeah, look, another headline mover. You're actually seeing gold up around 6% last time that I checked. That's going to be one of the biggest moves that we've seen in gold here in a very long time. Now, obviously, there's a very low base when it comes to that, but I think you are seeing the situation where by the dip, individuals are stepping in. From a technical basis, if you're looking at silver, it hit pretty much that 50-day moving average on Friday on an intraday basis, and individuals started stepping in and buying in at that particular level. So you are getting a retracement bounce. I don't think we're in the all clear yet. We kind of talked about this yesterday, though, Diane. I mean, it didn't seem like the trade was going to be over and done with, and that's usually not the fashion that we see, not only metals, but just commodities alone. You usually try to get another effort towards those all-time highs, and it seems like we're trying to do that right now. Now, the candle structure, if you're looking at silver, and we're able to close at these current levels, let's say around $87, $88, you have a decent hammer candle on the daily chart. That could also bring some optimism for technical traders out there to try to step into this name. The SLV ETF, if you're kind of looking at the options on that ETF, even from Friday and even Thursday of last week, there's still more of a call side skew, an aggressive call side skew. So that's one of the other signals that we kind of highlighted yesterday on the network that kind of give you maybe a little bit of optimism that a bounce may be coming as market makers are still preparing for some aggressive call buying activity to take place.
Okay, all right, and let's get your levels on the S&P 500 for today.
Yeah, so to the upside, looking at 70.20, to the downside 69.50. We have seen the VIX crush to around 16, so we're implying around a 1% move to the upside or downside. And Diane, just want to kind of highlight here, keep your eye out on the transport industry here. We actually saw a really decent bid in those yesterday. If that's going to follow through, there's still a lot of stocks that are basing out within that industry.
Okay, thank you. All right, that is Kevin Green, our senior markets correspondent. Appreciate that, KG.